So now first we will try to see content in detail. What is content listening? It deals with understanding and retaining information. So the objective here is to understand the content of the message and retain it. So content listening is also known as comprehensive listening, informative listening and full listening. So informative listening is where the listener's primary concern is to understand the message. This sort of listening is found in all areas of our lives. Much of our learning comes from content listening. For example, we listen to lectures or instructions from teachers, and what we learn depends on how well we listen. It can also be included in academic listening. This type of listening involves understanding and retaining the information provided by the speaker. It also requires to identify the main key points of the message and to find clues by doing a summary of it. Moreover, it is important to understand different sounds and tones provided by the speaker. However, some other factors need to be taken under consideration, such as phonology, vocabulary, grammar, general discourse and informational discourse. To effectively apply content listening, it is needed once again identify the main idea or the key points of the message. Then the next thing to do is to ask questions for clarifications if the message was misunderstood. This will increase the level of understanding of the message transmitted. The goal of content listening is to understand and retain the speaker's message. You may ask questions, but basically information flows from the speaker to you. It doesn't matter that you agree or disagree, approve or disapprove, only that you understand. So this is as far as the content is concerned. Next, the next type of active listening is critical listening. So that is, the objective here is to evaluate or analyze the message and figure out what is important or what is not, so that you can proceed to deal with the situation hand in hand without spending time on what is not relevant. So critical listening is a form of listening that is usually not mentioned, since it involves analysis and critical thinking as well as judgment. Making judgments during listening is often considered as a barrier to understand a person, and there is a lot of truth in that. However, critical listening occurs when you still want to understand what the other person is saying, but also have some reason or responsibility to evaluate what is being said to you and how it is being said. For example, if there is an upcoming election and you need to decide who to vote for, you probably use some form of critical listening when you watch a televised debate. You listen and you evaluate. While experts on learning and communication almost universally demean the importance and value of critical listening when it comes to real life listening critically used every day. The key, though, is try to understand the other person first before one evaluates. Critical listening is a rational process of evaluating arguments put forward by others. subject and logic. The focus of criticism may be either or both of the subject matter being disclosed or the logical structure of the argument being proposed. So, what is subject matter? Critical listening may be used or may be based on subject matter being talked about and assumes the listener is sufficiently expert in the subject matter to be able to form a valid opinion. Next is logic. So, it may also be based on the logic and structure of the argument being proposed, which assumes the listener has a sound grasp for logic and argumentation. Next is SIER structure. SIER critical listening breaks the process down in 4 repeating parts. One is S stands for sensing. Sensing is simply hearing the words. This is not automatic and requires careful focus and attention that excludes any distractions. Next, I stands for interpretation. So, interpretation is the process of understanding and assigning basic meaning. It is based on mental models and schemata of the listener, many of which may be based on commonly accepted knowledge and paradigms. Next, E stands for evaluation. Evaluation is the process of judging the argument, assessing facts presented for real accuracy, and seeking structural integrity and fallacies in the arguments presented. Next is assignment. Finally, having judged the argument, the critical listener may assign worth to it. An argument may thus be judged as strong, rational, truthful, and worthy, or weak, illogical, false, and unworthy. Critical listening skills is understand the person and context. When seeking to do critical listening, it can help to understand the person and their context. Many arguments do not stand alone, and understanding why the person is saying that or what they are saying can help in the understanding and consequently evaluation of their message. Probe. So, when people speak, there may be much that is assumed or otherwise left out of what is said. A useful approach is to probe. To probe, asking questions to add useful information and help them develop their argument. Care here is needed to avoid leading questions and other ways your interaction can pollute the argument the person is giving, turning it into a normal conversation rather than assessment of another person's views. A useful tool for probing are the Kipling questions of how, what, why, when, where, and who. These can give more ideas and truthful information. So, discrimination. An important part of listening and evaluation is separating one thing from another. This may take more time and questions, but lets you more accurately understand differences and get to important detail. An unskilled listener will quickly categorize what is said into one of a few types of argument. A more skilled person will have many categories and always seem more intermediate or extended cases. Knowledge of argumentation. Logical argument is a well developed field that goes back into ancient Greeks and Romans. An understanding of this field will help you analyze and probe to assess the effectiveness of any proposition. Fallacies in critical listening. It is easy to get critical listening wrong, which is a particular sin, as the critical listener setting himself or themselves up as edge as a judge must be impeccable in their judgment or lose serious credibility. Judging the person, not the message. A common error made by those who would be critical in their judgment is that they stray into judging the person rather than their argument. In this way, the speaker is found bad, deceitful, and so on. False positives. A false positive in evaluation of the argument is where you judge it as good while it is actually flawed in some way. This can happen when your ability to judge is limited by your knowledge or logic capabilities. False positives also happens where you make an evaluation based on the character of the speaker rather than what they are saying. Similarly, social desirability bias leads you to be kind because you want to be liked. Next, false negatives. A false negative occurs where you incorrectly judge the argument as being flawed when in fact it is actually valid. This can again happen due to lack of skill of the evaluator. It can also happen if you are overly critical of the speaker.